there, geometry students. This is Miss Hefty here. Today we're going to continue in our proofs and we're going to talk about angle proofs. Before we start our angle proofs, let's talk about angle addition postulate. Angle addition postulate states that you add the two pieces of the angle together to get the whole entire angle. So in my picture that I have here, I'm going to take the measure of angle PQR plus the measure of angle RQS, and it's going to equal the whole entire angle, the measure of angle PQS. And remember, when you're writing the angle addition postulate, you need the M's there to represent the measures of the angles. All right, let's take a look at our first proof. We are given EDG congruent to angle FDH, and we need to prove angle 1 and angle 3 are congruent. And I have that we're going to do that one in 6 steps. So let's take a minute here and remember that the given is always the first thing you're going to write down. So that's going to go in your number 1 spot. And then all the way down at the end, our 6th step, at the bottom, we're going to write the prove. Okay, so in number 1, I wrote my given, EDG congruent to angle FDH, and my reason is given, and then all the way down at the bottom, I took my prove and wrote angle 1 congruent to angle 3. Right, before you can start doing any kind of substitutions or anything, remember you need to change them to measures, to equal signs. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take and change my congruent sign to an equal. EDG equals measure of angle FDH. And remember that you do need to have the measures there when you have an equal sign. And when I go from congruent to equals, that's definition of congruent. Okay, now at this point, I need to start introducing angle 1 and angle 3. So they give me EDG, so I need to use it, the measure of EDG. I'm going to use EDG, here's EDG, to introduce angle 1, because angle 1 is part of that angle EDG. So EDG equals the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2. I also need to use my FDH. So when I look at my picture, FDH has 2 and 3. So I'm going to be able to introduce 3 using FDH. And so I count this as one step. It's going to take 2 lines, but I'm going to count that as one step, step 3. I'm using FDH equals measure of 2 plus measure of 3. And remember, that's the whole angle equals the 2 pieces added together. That would be called the angle addition postulate. Okay, so now moving on to number 4. My goal is to get 1 over on the left-hand side, and this here contains angle 1. EDG equals 1 and 2 added together. EDG is over here on the left-hand side, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 1 and 2 and I'm going to do a substitution. I'm going to substitute it in. Instead of EDG, I'm going to write the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 equals, and then same thing here, here's 3. 3 is the same thing as FDH. FDH is on the right. So I'm going to go measure of 2 plus measure of 3. And what I've done here is I've done a substitution. Okay, now I'm going to look down at the bottom at number 6. I see I have 1 here and I have 1 and 6. My last step in my proof. I need to have 3 on the right, and I have 3 on the right there. So at this point I'm looking and I need to get rid of my measures of 2. How can I get rid of my measures of 2? I'm going to subtract them. So in my 5th step, I'm going to go the measure of angle 1. These are going to be subtracted off, so I'm not really going to write it down. I'm thinking that. And same thing here, this one's going to be subtracted off. So I'm left with 1 and 3 there. Measure of 1 equals measure of 3. And what I've done is the subtraction property. And I said I was going to take 6 steps. I got an extra line here, no big deal at all. So what happens here from 5 to 6 then? My equals changes to congruent. So that's definition of congruent. Okay, let's take a look at our next one. This one takes 4 steps. Actually, it only takes 3 steps. All right, so again here, I'm going to take my givens, and I'm going to write it in my number 1 spot, and I'm going to write given. And then I'm going to take my prove, and I'm going to write it in my 3rd spot. Again, this one's only taking 3 steps. I know I had 4 written on the paper there, but it's only taking 3. All right, so I wrote my givens down. When you're given something, you need to use it. So let's read what the given says. C, X, E is being bisected by XD. What does bisect mean? Bisect means to make into 2 equal pieces. So these 2 angles are going to be equal. So I'm going to write the measure of angle 3 equals the measure of angle 4. And notice how I'm lining up the 4 with the 4. If I hadn't lined them up, then I would have had to do the symmetric property and switch them around. The reason why those 2 are equal because of bisect. So this one is definition of bisect. Now what happens from 2 to 3? Do you see that 3 is being switched to 1, and that would be the substitution property? So again, that one only took 3 steps. Let's move on to the next one. This one's going to take 4 steps. And you're given angle ABE equals DBC. So the first thing you're going to do is write your givens down. And you're going to write given. Then go down to the bottom and write your proof. 1 equals 3. All right, so now in step number 2, you need to do some introducing because you need to get 1 and 3 involved in the proof. You're given ABE. Well, 1 is part of ABE. So the measure of angle ABE equals the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2. So I'm introducing 1 so that I can talk about it at the end. And then I'm going to use my DBC to introduce 3. The measure of angle DBC equals the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 3. And again, I'm doing that twice. I'm doing angle addition twice. So I'm going to write that on one line. Angle addition postulate. Now, since ABE is over here on the right, I'm going to take all of this and I'm going to write it right here for a substitution. Measure of 1 plus the measure of 2, and then I'm going to take 2 and 3 and write it on the right-hand side. And that is a substitution. I'm hurrying a little bit. I'm going to abbreviate so I can save some time. What happens from 3 to 4? Do you see? Here's 1 and there's 1. Here's 3, and there's 3. How do you get rid of the 2's, the measures of 2's? You subtract them, subtraction property. All right, let's take a look at our last proof. I have 7 steps there. I think when I did it, I ended up getting 6. It all depends on if you switch things around or not, if you need an extra step. If I line everything up, it should work out in just the right number of steps. Number 1, write your givens down. Then go down to the bottom and write your proof. The next thing you need to do is you need to read your givens and say, what else can I write down? So when I read AB perpendicular to BC, what does perpendicular mean? Perpendicular means you have a right angle. So what I need to write now is angle ABC is a right angle. And how did I know that? From the word perpendicular. So I write definition of perpendicular. What is a right angle? A right angle is a 90-degree angle. So my next step would be measure of ABC equals 90 degrees. Definition of right angle. At this point now, I'm happy because as I'm looking here, I'm lining things up. Here's 90 degrees and there's 90 degrees. So this is working out okay for me. Next thing I need to do is I need to try and introduce 1 because 1 is at the end and I haven't talked about 1 yet. 1 is part of ABC. So the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 equals the measure of ABC. And that is angle addition postulate. All right, so now I'm looking and I'm saying things are lining up here. I've got 1, I've got 1. This 2 really needs to be a 3. 2 can change to 3. So in number 5, I'm going to write measure of 1 plus the measure of angle 3 equals the measure of angle ABC. What I've done right here is a substitution, people. All right, now I'm looking. I've got 1 and 1, 3 and 3. ABC here needs to be a 90. Can I change ABC to a 90? Okay, yes I can. And did I tell you at the beginning that this was going to be 6 steps? Originally when I wrote it, I had things not lining up, so it took me 7. But right now, hey guys, I'm changing ABC to 90 because ABC can be 90. So that is a substitution. So, all right, we're finished, people. You have a great night, and if you want to get started, go on to the classroom webpage and get the angle proof worksheet and get started on that. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in class tomorrow. Have a good night.